Do bear with us. I'm just trying to work out how to get me on the screen. Paul usually does this, but he's away this evening. There you go. Right, Paul never tells me how to do these things. So welcome to AIoT Hub. My good friend and colleague, Paul Wheels, is away this evening. As you can probably guess, he's off on his jollies. So it's just me hosting tonight. We are very pleased to offer you Jennifer Williams from the University of Southampton, who is representing our sponsor, the Edge AI Hub, this evening. How are you, Jennifer?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Have you been dealing with the heat okay?
I've been trying.
or are you used to it for where you're from? Cool. Next meetup is in September. We take a break for August. We don't do anything then because we're both on holiday. So watch the usual meetups for details of that. Jennifer, our sponsor, who we're very grateful for, is the Edge AI Hub, and I understand you're part of that. Is there something you can tell us about their work and what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a few slides about that. Shall I save that for those slides, or a little overview?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, however you want to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm happy to talk about the Edge AI Hub.
Cool. Well, shall I set you off then?
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Thanks. So hello, everybody. I'm Jennifer Williams, and I am a lecturer at the University of Southampton, as well as a scientific advisor at the Alan Turing Institute, where I'm seconded. I'm also one of the engagement directors for the South England area on the UK National Edge AI Hub. So I have an outline here of my talk tonight, and I'll go over some introduction to my work, including a bit about the Edge AI Hub. We'll talk about AI regulation and radio watchkeeping at sea. I'm going to present to you what I call my wicked adversarial problem. I'll highlight some of the security and privacy thrusts at the University of Southampton, including pain signals from speech and some augmented reality. So just a bit of an introduction about myself and what I do in the UK. Some of my research activities, there's quite a few. So one thing I work on is deepfakes, and that includes developing detection tools, helping humans in order to make better decisions about deepfakes, making decisions that are explainable, built into various algorithms, being able to do this in a continuous manner. So we call it continuous authenticity, making those solutions scalable. So that includes scaling up to process a lot of large data, as well as scaling down so they can run on edge devices, performing localization within the audio signal, developing data sets, and making all of these systems very robust. So I led the Southampton team in the 2024 UK Home Office Deepfake Detection Challenge. And I also engage on elements of policy regulation, horizon scanning, and some of the technical challenges through advising. In terms of privacy, so I have several research thrusts in this area. One of them is characterizing what we call challenging speakers. So challenging speakers, excuse me, are speakers who when they speak, they have particular characteristics of their voice that make them particularly easy or difficult to deepfake, or easy or difficult to make their biometrics private. I have also developed a new kind of privacy. We call it content privacy, which is really great for transferring information over things like the internet. Like, for example, in this call, where we have information that's very compressed, and it has to have maybe an extra layer of privacy or security on that. And then one of my students is working on audiovisual hearing aids and developing privacy solutions for hearing aids there. In terms of voice in medicine, so I've been working on things like detecting emotion as well as pain from the voice reconstruction and cloning, and synthesis as well. In terms of the AI regulation and AI safety landscape, so I look at where speech technology is integrated and operational, sort of both operational environments as well as sort of imagined future environments where speech technology might be deployed. And this includes looking at cross-national approaches, cross-regulatory technology, because when we start looking at how speech technology gets integrated, it may fall under various regulatory remits. and then trying to do that in a responsible manner. So I helped the UK Foreign Office with their collaboration with the state of Utah and the USA, which is not from Utah, but I am from the States. And we were honoring the UK-Utah MOU. So I was part of the UK delegation with some of the UK diplomats there, which is really interesting being in my home country as part of a UK delegation. But it was a very nice collaboration that is continuing. And we're also developing a new UK-India Responsible AI Center. So in terms of regulation and safety, I do interface with regulators, industry and academia, and talking about like safety critical systems across different sectors like aerospace, maritime, and communications. So some examples of those international engagements. In September, there we are in Utah with FCDO, represented by folks from Los Angeles as well as San Francisco. I was in Saudi Arabia also at the Global AI Summit. So I was on a panel on the big stage talking about deepfakes, and that was hosted by Saudia Data and AI Authority. And then I think it's important to mention, I used to be the chair of this special interest group. This is a mostly academic-based special interest group that anyone can sign up to. We run a conference, a workshop conference once a year. So you can submit papers or you can just attend. And that's a really great group. It is a lot of academics, but we also have people from industry as well. So I was chair from 2023 to this year, 2025. I've now been elected to the board. So I had to, of course, vacate that role. And then I guess a fun announcement, there's a brand new cost action. So this is a collaboration with EU nations, as well as many, many other nations that have joined the cost action. And this is to look at the implementation of vocal biomarkers. So it's primarily a health-related engagement. However, there is an element of privacy and security. So that's where I come in to this cost action, is looking at how to protect and secure voice data. I'm also part of the UK Management Committee with my colleague, Nick Cummins at UCL. So I put a note here. You can go to that website. If you're interested, you can join the cost action and get involved in some of our working groups. We have quite a number of working groups that could be of interest. Now, in terms of the National Edge AI Hub, this is a huge investment, 12 million. Sorry, I have a pop-up here. Don't allow. Okay, so it's a huge investment for 5 years. It started last year. This is multiple UK universities and industry partners, and our colleague, Professor Rajiv Ranjan from Newcastle, leads the Edge AI Hub. My involvement, again, looking at my background of speech technology, so speech technology deployed on ultra-low power devices, looking at the healthcare sector as well as the transport sectors. And then I'm also one of the engagement directors, and I represent the South England area. So this is a bit of an overview of kind of what our hub structure looks like. I mentioned, there's a whole lot of universities in the UK and Northern Ireland that are involved with this, and this is kind of where we sort of fit in to the landscape. So I've highlighted in red where Southampton lies in this. So we are co-investigators on the research team, and then we are also engagement. I'm an engagement director at Southampton. But you can see there's quite a bit of structure here. So it's important to have something like this. If you go to the website, you can find this schematic and see kind of who you want to reach out to, depending on what you're working on. We have some research themes, and each of those themes have theme leads, and I'll go into that in just a second. But yeah, so definitely check out the website, and all you need to do is Google, Edge AI Hub. I think that's edgeaihub.co.uk, something like that. It's really straightforward to find the website. And so here's a bit of an overview of some of our research themes. So we have overall 5, the first one being the hub engagement and impact. So in terms of technical content, really 4 major research themes here. Southampton belongs to research theme 3, which is what I've highlighted, and that is edge computing for AI. I've put down below some of the example case studies from our research theme. And so when we talk about edge computing for AI, we're looking at kind of how do we do tiny ML for embedded devices. One university is also working on what's called NeuroFlux, memory efficient training for small devices. And then on the bottom right is SAFE, that stands for Southampton Audio Forensic Evaluator, and that's our deepfake detection system that runs on ultra low power, really fast for continuous authenticity for deepfake detection. But there are other research themes if that doesn't sound of interest. We have cyber disturbance modeling for edge computing. Of course, my research theme, edge computing for AI. We have the AI-driven edge data and model guard, and data-sensitive application use cases driven validation. So if you go to the website, you can have a look at each of the research themes. Each of them have a page as well as contact information for who the lead is in each research theme. And you can get a sense of kind of where your work might fit into the hub, and find out who you need to contact there to get engaged with the hub. We are very excited for the hub. We meet all the time, and it'd be really great to have, if you're listening to this, have you on board and to hear from you and see how you'd like to contribute to the Edge AI Hub. So in terms of Edge AI, something that comes up a lot, and this is a slide that I've been including in my presentations lately, especially if I do public outreach, but I think it's important as an academic to talk about how we translate our academic research out of the lab and sort of classroom and into the real world. So I've worked in industry quite a bit, including doing work on edge devices. And one thing I've learned is that real world applications, not only are they extremely messy, but they require very efficient solutions. And in my world in speech technology, if we try to put speech technology onto edge devices, we're dealing with limited memory, limited power consumption, and we need, to deal with the latency issue. But when we do prototyping in academia, a lot of that prototyping is resource intensive. So we need to be able to do our research and development, keeping all of these things in mind. And so this is a feedback pathway that I like to talk about for how I look at how my academic work, which sometimes is very foundational, how that translates into what we would think of as like an end use or end user even. So thinking more deeply about the what, why, and the how. Usually academics live on the left-hand side of this diagram, where we just do prototyping all the time, and then hopefully it works. And so, the eureka moment is this technique works, it gives good results, and that's the end of it, and we publish that, and we go to the conference, and we get our publication, and that's it, and we move on to the next problem. But there's always a question of, does it work well enough to actually do something with that prototype? And if it does, what is good performance, and what is the context in which it will be used? Does it have vulnerabilities that need to be further explored? Does it meet the user needs in a safe manner? And I think if we just, as academics, if we take that just a couple steps further down this pipeline, down this pathway, we can actually do better and better at prototyping, because there's more things that we can prototype. So that's my bit on how we translate the academic research into real world. So next, I want to talk about AI regulation and radio watchkeeping at sea. This is a really fun project. I'm really excited to share it with you. So in 2023, so this is a while ago now, especially in the AI world, this was a long time ago, but 2 years ago, we started running these AI regulation workshops in London. And here we are. There's two, one from May and one from November. There we are, all in a room. And why am I even bringing this up? Well, this was the first time that anyone had attempted to get these kinds of people all in the same room. We had UK universities from all different kinds of disciplines, technical and non-technical, even like legal or business, alongside UK regulators and UK industry. We had regulators come in and they gave invited talks. And the whole idea was to bring together multiple stakeholders to open up the communication and just normalize the fact that we all need to be interacting together to deal with this issue of AI safety and regulation and solve some of these bigger problems. So we looked at how cross-sector regulation could work and what are some of those challenges. We had some really great engagement from the UK community, all kinds of folks from the regulatory side. We did talks and World Cafe discussions. And so some of the key takeaways here is that it is incredibly difficult to look at AI regulation across the sectors, but also very necessary. And the different sectors have different appetites for regulation and different pressing issues. And the reason I think that's really important is because we hear this term a lot, just AI in general. And I think it's funny when people say AI because I don't always know exactly what they mean. I work in a very specific kind of AI, speech technology. So I'm more interested in that niche. So when someone says AI regulation, it's almost like, well, I don't even know what they're talking about. And then the other important point, which leads into the work I'm about to present to you, is this idea of a safety critical system. And safety critical means different things to different regulators in terms of what the risks and the harms are. So I think a really great contrast example would be the issue of online safety, where children might be put at risk, versus transportation safety, where you might have an incident or a plane, crash or things like that. Very different kinds of safety issues, very different kinds of risks. And so when we talk about AI safety, it's important to keep that in mind. And what we did is we took that term safety critical and we developed it into a project in and of itself. And so we developed this international partnership through the Responsible AI UK ecosystem, and we're awarded a small amount to work on AI regulation assurance for safety critical systems. So there we are. I'm the principal investigator. My co-investigators, Zena Assad and Peng Wei from Australia and the USA. And what we were doing was looking at safety critical systems across three sectors. So that's aerospace, maritime, and communications. And we aligned this whole project to the AUKUS Pillar 2, which is the artificial intelligence pillar, looking at some kinds of proxy problems that might have bigger impact and trying to model what our international engagement could be. In the project, we're looking and deep diving into some of the possible technologies that might come up and trying to expose what the technical vulnerabilities are, trying to characterize those, quantify them, and really provide regulators with some information, as well as honoring the different types of national discussions that happen in each of these three nations, the UK, Australia, and the US. Very different national conversations. And so the whole point would be to develop a toolkit, provide some guidance for the regulators, explore this issue of cross-regulation, and identify the technical research and regulatory gaps so that they could be addressed in later research. So here's what our engagement model looks like. The core team would be the three folks that I just mentioned, myself, Zena, and Peng. And then we are advised by our advisory network, which consists of folks like defense, government, and regulators. And then we have our extended network, and that's pretty much everyone else. So that's industry, our special interest groups, academics, our colleagues, et cetera. And what we have done is run workshops in each nation. So we would do some pre-workshop prep, examine case study technologies, do some needs analysis, and identify regulatory and application challenges. And then we'd run the workshop, deep diving into some safety critical factors. And then now we're at the stage where we've done the workshops and we're now doing some analysis. So we're looking for common elements across the three nations to develop a toolkit for the regulators, because the three sectors that we chose, maritime, aerospace, and communications, those are particular sectors really don't have boundaries, national boundaries, in the same way that say a medical device that you can import and export has, because you've got ships moving through the ocean, through the water, you've got planes flying through the sky, and communications, obviously, with the internet, doesn't really have boundaries. So we are in the process of wrapping up this project, and here's kind of an outlook of how it has progressed. We've done some engagement. We ran the September USA workshop, did some more engagement. We had the March Australia workshop, and then we just finished the June workshop in London, and we have a bit more engagement to do, and then we will wrap up in September and provide our toolkit to the regulators. So one important thing I think that came out of the London workshop is that we see the world in our own unique way. And so when we come together from different disciplines, like I have a technical background, but when we come together with different disciplines, we don't have to agree on everything. So someone from policy who does that, and me from a technical background, where I might say, well, that's not even possible to implement that, and they say, well, but we need it. We don't have to agree on all things all the time, but we all have a stake in AI. Of course, the broad sense of AI, and that doesn't depend on our individual lens. So I encourage the participants to share their lenses and try on a different lens. So it was highly interdisciplinary, and I wanted people to try to see the problems of AI safety from different perspectives. And we deep dived into some of the DCIT's pro innovation regulation principles. So these are the 5 principles. If you have not heard of this, it's a little different of a framework from the EU and from the US even. So there's 5 here: safety, security, and robustness, for example. My favorite is number 5, contestability and redress. What do you do when something goes wrong? How do people contest AI? And we're starting to see that a lot in AI, especially in the security and privacy domain. So the technology that we've been deep diving into is this idea of a maritime radio watchkeeper. And when ships are at sea, whether they're fully autonomous surface vessels or they're manned, they must comply with international maritime regulations. Well, if such a fully autonomous vessel were to go to sea, it would still need a radio watchkeeper, and that radio watchkeeper would be an AI system. So you can imagine you call out on the radio, and the person on the other end is in fact an AI, and by design. And so we're trying to figure out what exactly are the stipulations that AI would need to meet. So we've characterized it as a very high level summary here, that AI on the radio would need to be able to listen, understand, and respond. So it needs to be on the correct frequencies. It has to know when to change frequencies. It needs to be able to do language understanding and dialogue, be able to detect distress calls, and even alert if a transmission on the radio is a deep fake or a spoof. It needs to know and be able to decide when to rebroadcast a radio transmission, especially if it's going to hand off to a human, and be able to respond appropriately to requests. So we had this sort of problem space in that world of looking at the functionality, the requirements, and various types of vulnerabilities based on the state of the art today. In the London workshop, I thought it would be really fun to run this in Westminster. So I rented the Churchill War Rooms. If you have not been to the Churchill War Rooms, I highly recommend that you do. It's a fascinating museum. And as a museum, it also has an event space. So we had 50 people, a little more than 50 people. And we had secret missions. So the way I designed this workshop was to make it especially interesting. And given the sort of the context of the 3 sectors, I thought it'd be fun to give little secret missions to all of the participants. And then I assigned everyone to teams. I used the alphabet from NATO. So we had like Team Delta, Team Alpha, and then had a competition with some prizes, as well as 5 international guests from Australia, USA, and Saudi Arabia. We had UK regulators in the room, we had UK industry in the room, a whole bunch of academics and people coming together from all different kinds of disciplines. So like specialists in maritime, specialists in speech technology and speech recognition and things like that. I gave everyone a surprise agenda, so this was made it a little bit more fun. So there was the event that they signed up for, and then there was the event that they got, and this is what they got. So we had the secret missions, and then we did an information gathering session where they had to, according to their secret mission, try to find out some information from the other participants. And then they were convened into their NATO alphabet units, where they put together proposals for how to address some of the issues that I've been talking about in terms of AI regulation. And then I selected a winner from those teams that submitted. And this was the winning team. So Team Charlie had a really great proposal, so that it was really fun. So next, I want to talk about what I call my wicked adversarial problem. And if you haven't ever heard of a wicked problem, I'm going to introduce you to what a wicked problem is. But first, I just want to take a step backwards in time, going all the way back to 2018, which is around the time I first came to the UK, and I was at Edinburgh doing my PhD. And I gave a talk on a Friday night. We always had Friday night talks. And I wanted to try to address an issue of something I had noticed, which is that we, whoever we are, I believe it's academics perhaps, we're headed down an interesting path. And this was again 7 years ago. And what I noticed was that all of the same researchers around the world were all working on these problems. So voice biometrics attacks, the attack countermeasures, creating voices, cloning voices, making the fake speech sound more natural, being able to do adversarial speech recognition, and then detecting the deep fakes and then creating deep fakes. And so what this means, what I'm trying to say here is that it's this really interesting space to work in professionally because you've got just all these people like for example, in order to do really good voice biometric. In order to do very good voice biometrics, you have to understand the vulnerabilities and be able to counter the attacks. But not all the attacks exist. So you have to basically invent some attacks in order to test the attacks. And what we end up with is some kind of a adversarial development cycle here. And I found this absolutely fascinating. And I just wanted to alert my colleagues in general, like as a discipline, what are we doing here? Basically. So, we have, develop a system, analyze the system, devise an attack, analyze the attack, develop the countermeasures. And this cycle just goes on and on and on. And that is sort of how we have ended up with the deepfake problem in society, I would argue. And it's very interesting. For me, and particularly because I've seen a very fast technological progression since I came to the UK in 2017 to do my PhD. So I first came to the UK thinking that I was going to work on this particular thing called Merlin speech synthesis. It was the best type of speech synthesis ever. At the time, it was before Google put out their vocoder called WaveNet. And then everything just started changing as I was doing my PhD. So we had a lot of advances in what we call the language grounding problem, which is cross-modal learning. If you are not familiar with the technical term language grounding, what I'm basically saying is what we would call today a foundation model. So a model that slurps in all different kinds of modalities of data and processes it in a latent space. In a latent semantic space. We had advances in neural vocoders, which made speech synthesis sound more natural. We had a huge breakthrough in neural speaker representations for voice biometrics called the X Vector. The Voice Privacy Initiative came out in 2018 out of Europe. We had emotion recognition and paralinguistic analysis advances. There were some major advances in spoofing speaker verification, as well as detecting partially spoofed speech. So that's where it's like half deep fake, half real. And then we see these multitask neural networks. So it used to be the case that if you wanted to work on speech enhancement, you would have to do your PhD in electrical engineering and then study for many, many years, and you could become an expert in speech enhancement. And you had to focus on only that problem. And if you wanted to do recognition, same thing. And you end up with like two separate experts. Well, because of multitask neural networks, we end up with all of this going into the same neural network. You don't even need a PhD in electrical engineering to do this kind of work anymore. In fact, you probably don't even need a PhD. So the world has changed a lot since I came here to do my PhD. And here we are in 2025. We now have foundation models. ChatGPT got really popular really fast. Deepfakes are making its way around the world. And then we have all of this global talk about AI regulation. So in my world, speech technology has shifted out of the lab and into the public domain, where the conversations in the public domain are a little bit different than what we would have in academia. So enter the wicked problem. So a wicked problem, these are the 10 criteria for a wicked problem. There's no definite formulation of a wicked problem. There's no stopping rules. Solutions are not true or false. They're just kind of better or worse. There's no way to test that a solution is going to solve the problem because it's wicked. It's very complex. A one-shot solution can be done, but not really by trial and error, and on and on. There's all these 10 criteria. And so I would argue that deepfakes are now a form of a wicked problem because the issues surrounding deepfakes are so complex. It's not just a matter of, okay, let's just make deepfakes illegal from a policy perspective or a legal perspective, because actually a lot of people use synthetic speech for medical purposes. So, you might have an illness and health and lose the ability to speak. And you can use speech synthesis and you can type it out and it can have a voice for you. You can even reconstruct a voice from pieces of a voice so that it actually does kind of sound like you. And we see this happening a lot of places, but even also in Hollywood to protect voice actors if they're ill and things like that. So it is a wicked problem. And wicked problems are not technical. They're complex behavioral, organizational, and planning problems. So that is part of why in this talk that I'm giving you, I'm talking about not just technical content about like the technical work that I do, but really the behavioral and organizational and planning aspects of it as well. So I present to you 3 wicked challenges. These are the kinds of things that I think about when I'm doing my technical work. So if we had deepfakes come out at trial and you were on the jury, are you qualified to determine if audio is real or fake? And then in my work, what kind of information, technical information, do I need to translate in order to help jurors make those decisions? And then to make that even more complicated, experts are still trying to agree the vocabulary for words and their scope, not just necessarily what these words mean, but what is their scope of what is the meaning of deceptive or synthetic or authentic. And then on top of all of that, the technical landscape in AI is shifting so much faster than the legal, regulatory, and forensic analysis landscape can keep up. So those are 3 really interesting sort of organizational problems that need to be addressed. But I have some even wickeder challenges that I would like to share with you. And so this first one is called the cost of reality. So we have a lot of companies popping up, and their product is to detect deepfakes. And they make money off of that. And they have a stake in the existence of deepfakes rather than actually solving the problem. So my question is, should industry be selling us products that do reality as a service? Is that something that we want to purchase? Or is that something that we should be allowing companies to sell? The next one is human voice artists. So these are genuine human beings. They make their living off of their voice, and sometimes they use digital tools. So what is it that we can do in the technical world to help protect them and their whole industry, the whole creative industries? How can we ensure that that industry will continue to survive in this age of AI? And then something a bit more provocative is death. So if I die, does my family have the authority to take a clone of my voice, for example, maybe from this live stream, to clone my voice and then put maybe a large language model behind that to make it talk, and then have one last conversation with me as part of the grieving process? Now, believe it or not, there are people who would be willing to make that technology, and there's also people who would be willing to pay for that technology. So there's definitely a market for it, but then it's a bit of an ethical question as part of this wicked problem about deepfakes is whether we need to be preparing for that future reality. So on the topic of deepfakes, I have to have conversations sometimes with my mother just to help keep her aware of what is in the world. What are some of the security threats in the world? And so to make my point, I made a couple of deepfakes of myself, one a bit more recent, and then one of me as a baby, just to make the point. And I'll go ahead and play this. I don't know if the sound is going to come through, so please let me know. Hello.
Yep, sounds good.
I am not Jennifer Williams, and this video is not real. Okay, so that one is struggling. She's having a difficult time. It looks like there's just kind of a look in her eyes. That deep fake was created from a still photograph, and then I added the voice on top of that while animating the photograph. So that was just a photo. So we post our photos online all the time. I know I do. And even some people post photos of their children. So that's a nice conversation starter, I think, to have that conversation with your family. And then for my mother, this was actually her Mother's Day gift for fun. Let's see if I can get this one to play. Hi, it's me, Jennifer. This is when I was a baby. Hello. So I mean, it's cute, it's funny, but it's also really creepy. And when I was having the conversation with my mother about AI technology and deep fakes, that the one of the baby definitely made the point that I was trying to make for her. She said, "Okay, yeah, we're in a different world now." So the next thing I want to talk with you about is the privacy and security threats at the University of Southampton. And it seems like I'm running out of time a bit here. So why do I work on voice for security and privacy? So there's a lot of information in voice. It can be represented, of course, in the time domain as a waveform or the frequency domain as a spectrogram. And if you do banking in the UK, you may have already been exposed to voice biometrics where your bank makes you say something like, "My voice is my password," and then that gets you in over the phone. I won't play that. That's just me saying my voice is my password. But voice contains a lot of information. So it has our identity, like our biometrics. We have the words that are spoken, the way we speak, the emotion, our gender, age, accent, whether or not we have any kind of health conditions. And interestingly, because of the way we can analyze the voice signal, we can even sometimes predict like the body composition, like if someone is particularly tall or particularly obese, as well as the recording environment. So, what size of room was this recording made in? And just a lot of information just in a small, short recording. So when I think about speech privacy and security, there's no accepted definition within my field, within my discipline. So I have adopted some from the legal domain, and I'm more than happy to edit and update these if there's a lot of disagreement about these. So privacy would be controlling access to information. So that could be hiding or concealing information in order to share sensitive data sets, or bypassing voice biometric systems and speaker identification. In terms of security, that would be how information in the speech signal could be used or misused. So that includes things like voice reconstruction, which would be for a medical purpose, versus a deep fake, which would be for a misinformation purpose, trying to re-identify speakers after they've been made private and things like that. So I adopt those definitions until my discipline can adopt their own or set up their own. So one of the things in terms of voice privacy is this idea of content privacy, where the objective is to build a masker that can conceal specific information in the speech signal, for example, when speech is in transmission. And the idea is to add an additional layer of privacy and security beyond what we would call removing the voice identity and beyond encryption. So some things are just so sensitive that we want that extra layer of protection. And some examples of the type of content we would want to make private would be not just the words, but even some of the non-speech events, personality traits, prosody. So the way my voice rises and falls is really particular to me as an individual. Someone's emotion, pattern disfluencies. I obviously have a lot of pattern disfluencies, but that's okay. So here's an example of what that would look like. So if we remove the biometric information from the speech signal so that you can't identify me, for example, over the phone in the UK voice banking, but I still say my name is Jennifer and I give you all this sensitive information, it doesn't really matter that my biometric information has been removed because all that information is now in the content of what I've spoken. So we want to create a masker that can mask that kind of content. And then we look at various transmission and intrusion scenarios. So it could be person to person, where the intrusion is an eavesdropper just listening in around the corner, or it could be a machine doing the intrusion. So some devices are in always listening mode. It could be voice over IP, which is what this is today, or speech-to-speech translation, all kinds of different scenarios there. So another research thrust that we have is this idea of challenging speakers. So the original idea of anonymization is to suppress the personally identifiable information in the speech signal, leaving the other attributes intact. And what we want to do is characterize the challenging speakers based on these anonymization systems from the voice privacy challenges. So we look at the 2020 challenge, but now there's been several more challenges since then with new data. And we use automatic speaker recognition, or sorry, I should say automatic speaker verification, ASV, and compare that with human judgments to do our evaluation. We explore a particular type of attack model called a lazy informed attack model. So we assume that it has access to the anonymized enrollment utterances. This particular type of attack is less explored, and there are very few protections against it. So that's why we are focusing on that. And the idea is to understand the vulnerabilities of voice anonymization systems based on the speaker-centric analysis. And by speaker-centric analysis, what we do is we borrow concepts from Doddington 1998. So it's an oldie but a goodie. And he came up with this idea that speakers, people, can be one of 4 animal categories. And it's fun because they're animals, but they do have technical definitions. But it's really fun when I talk about this work and I say, oh, the goats are this way or the wolves are this way. It's based on, true positives and false negatives and things like that. So they have a mathematical basis, but they characterize speakers based on how they perform in a speaker verification task. And so we borrow this concept in order to characterize the speakers, not just in the speaker verification, but in speaker privacy, trying to see what is it about these speakers that make them fall into one of these categories when they're anonymized. So the idea for identification would be to minimize the goat, lambs, and wolves. But then for voice privacy, our desire is to maximize the goats. So we want all the speakers, if they're really truly private, made private, they would all be goats. So this is just an example of some of our analysis. I think because I'm sort of running out of time here, I might just go over some of this really quickly. So this is where we had humans do an A/B test where they say, is the speaker same or different? And we give them different anonymization and real examples. And the point of this is to show that the speakers along the x-axis, those are individual speakers, they have different distributions of how they fit into the 4 animal categories. So some speakers, for example, on the very left-hand side, speaker P254 is always a sheep all the time. But at other speakers, for example, going a little further to the right, speaker P279 is a goat a lot of the time, and then a little bit of lamb, a little bit of wolf, and quite a bit of sheep. So that tells us that there's something fundamentally different about the voice of P254 and speaker 279. And so we want to be able to characterize and quantify what those differences are as to why those 2 speakers perform so differently in this evaluation. Then we also look at the per system distribution. So we have a whole bunch of different anonymization systems. They are labeled AD, IKMOS, and then we have 2 baselines and the original authentic natural speech. And we do a comparison of the human scoring versus the automatic speaker verification scoring, and we divide it by male and female because our data is labeled for gender. And we can see that different anonymization systems have different distributions. So here's just kind of a summary of that. What we want to know is, what is the contribution of these differences that we're seeing? What is the contribution of the speaker and the intrinsic nature of the speaker's voice versus what is the contribution of the anonymization system that is accounting for these variations. So that is the work that we're now undertaking. So this paper was published in 2024 at IEEE ICASP, and we're now working on the follow-up to that, and these are the extensions of that work. So trying to identify the acoustic properties of those challenging speakers, examining the interplay between the challenging speakers and the anonymization systems, and then thinking about how would we inform, recommend, or redesign the voice privacy challenge data sets to account for the diversity of the speakers' voices. So this is, I think, really important when it comes to like assurance. If someone's going to claim, oh, we've solved the problem of voice privacy, we might say, well, what about this data set, or what about this characteristic of a data set? Are there any guarantees that can be made from training data? And then we want to develop new anonymization metrics that can account for the challenging speakers. So if we're going to say this anonymization system performs very, very well, what if it performs very well on easy speakers, that should be weighted differently than if it performs very well on challenging speakers. So we're going to need a new metric for that evaluation as well. So the next thing I'll talk to you about, I'm going to jump just a little bit from the security and privacy into the medical domain and talk about some of the things we're working on in terms of pain signals from speech. So, and this problem, we look at the fact that not everyone can adequately verbalize their pain in a clinical setting. So that could be because the person has some speech impairments. They might have had a stroke and they have difficulty communicating. They might have cognitive difficulties. They could be children who don't know how to verbalize their pain, or they might be foreign language speakers who normally would be able to, but just can't say it in the right language. So for example, saying the phrase, ouch, that hurts, I'm in pain, it's an 8 out of 10, might be very, very difficult for some people to verbalize and to get the right treatment for them. So what we looked at in this project is a proof of concept solution to see if we can find acoustic biomarkers in the auditory signal that correspond to pain. And we set this up as a cross-cultural pain expression study between the US and the UK, where we replicated our study in both countries. And then we developed some AI tools that can analyze pain from audio and then compare that with the doctor assessments of pain. And here's this kind of an overview of the project broken up into a very high level. So there's a data collection where we subject people to pain. Originally we're thinking to use a Tesla suit. And then we would do system development where we analyze all the data that we've collected. And then we do a cross-cultural study where we compare the US and the UK. So I have a question of whether or not it's responsible to do that kind of research. So pain signals in speech, they could be misused, I should say, for torture, or it could be used for very awful applications. We need ethical approval in order to induce pain on people and collect their speech data. Speech is a form of biometric data under UK's GDPR, so that needs ethical approval as well as the inducement of pain. And then there's also this question of how much pain would we need to subject people to in order for the pain signal to show up in the speech data. And then this other problem of sharing the speech pain data set across international borders, where these now become medical data sets and they become sensitive data sets. So how would we do our collaboration between the US and UK? And then there's another question of which pain level is the ground truth. Is it the pain that the researchers, my team, thinks that they have provoked? Or is it the pain that is reported by the person experiencing it? Or is it the pain that the doctor looks at and says, yeah, that's the pain? Because who's going to administer the analgesic? But pain is a subjective experience and everyone is different. So there's this question of, would we get anything out of this research study? And then there's different types of pain. There's chronic pain and acute pain, and there's more than that. But in this study, we looked at acute pain. in order to address the responsible research aspects of this study, we use the area framework where we try to anticipate, which is what this slide is showing, anticipate all of the issues, reflect on them, engage on how to resolve some of these challenges, and then act and fix what we could to make the studies safe as possible. So this is the team. There's quite a few people who are not pictured. We had 10 core team members, 3 academic institutions across the US and UK, multiple undergraduate interns who took leadership roles. Between all of us, we had 7 different disciplines represented, and of those, 1 speech researcher. That was me. But we did this whole project, and we've now released the data set through Nature. That is available to download from the US. And so we did all this work with only 1 speech researcher. And I think it's a great example, when we talk about hubs and the Edge AI hub and everything, when we bring people together in a hub like the Edge AI hub, this was on the TAS hub, but when we bring people together, really amazing work can happen. And so I really hope that you're interested in engaging more with the Edge AI hub. So the last thing I want to talk about is augmented reality. And this is some work at the PhD level that we're looking at getting someone to work on. If we talk about this picture as if it were sound. I know it's obviously not sound, and sorry, my slide is a little out of adjustment here. If you listen to this image, you would hear a lot of things because it's a very busy image. You would have conversations of people on the street. You'd have traffic going by. You have the sounds of nature, like the birds chirping. You've got airplanes in the sky, all making noise. And in an image, you might be able to very clearly segment, like here's where the airplane is, here's where the conversation's happening. But in audio, this is really difficult because we have all that information is all entangled together into a single signal. And so this project, creating the augmented reality soundscape experiences for the Edge, this one looks at how do we disentangle that one audio signal into these separate components. And when we do that, what can we do with that information? Can we control maybe the sound of nature and turn down the sound of traffic and maybe amplify the sound of birds to give people sort of a better experience of walking through London, or vice versa? Maybe people want to hear more of the traffic and maybe they feel at home when they hear that. So this is just kind of an overview of some work that is ongoing and something that really looking for some industry partners to help support this. So I'll just leave you with some questions to ponder. How does your work build public trust, or is your work building public trust? Is it just AI, or is it AI for good? Does your work create more problems that need to be solved? So in this talk, I used an example about reality as a service and how some companies are selling deepfake detection as a product. And does that perpetuate a problem or create more problems that need to be solved? And if it does, which that happens, but what are we doing about it? Are you engaging with academics, for example, on the Edge AI Hub, in order to get those other problems solved so that we know what's coming down the pipeline? Are you aligning your work with the UK's 5 principles of AI regulation? And have you thought about some kind of public engagement or raising public awareness of your solutions? And finally, would you like to get involved with the Edge AI Hub? Because if you would, I am the South England Engagement Director, and I would love to have a chat. So feel free to stay connected. And I've put my LinkedIn profile here. You can add me on LinkedIn or just check out the photo of my motorcycle there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was absolutely fantastic. Is that coming from you or me?
That's my side. That's an airplane. So see,
okay.
we need that. Right. We need that augmented reality soundscape to turn that airplane down.
Okay, right. A question from Nick Young: is there an audio equivalent of the large language models generating standard length sentences?
I'm sure there are. If you go to a place like huggingface.com, you will find a lot of resources there. I think if I'm understanding this question correctly, it's like, is there an off-the-shelf tool that would do kind of what an LLM is known to do, but for audio? And the answer is absolutely yes.
Yeah, I think I'd just put it to an LLM and then some audio package that converted the text to speech, because there's plenty of those around.
Yes, plenty of those. That was not the case a few years ago, but we now live in a world where all those off-the-shelf tools are available. Yeah.
Yeah, your expertise in AI sounds really interesting, and it's a shame Paul's not here because me and him usually take diametrically opposing views on it. Like AI is the future, and it's going to take over the world, and devs are being made redundant. And I'm like a dev, and I use it every day, and it's like it's not making us redundant because it's just not fulfilling the promise. Paul, where are you on the AI hype curve?
Well, I think there's definitely a lot of hype, and some of that is marketing hype, which is fine. Everyone has to have a business and make a living, and that's fine. There's a way to capitalize on that is for good for all. I do think that we need to have the proper conversations about regulation and safety, and maybe just have a think about what we're doing and why. And I say we, like society, not just me and not just the Edge AI Hub. In the same way that if we were all able to manufacture medicine in our homes and share that with our neighbors, I don't know if we would want that regulated due to the potential harms it could cause, even if it hasn't caused actual harm. I think if you told me you just made a new paracetamol and you wanted me to try it, I would pause.
Yeah. Okay. The Radio Watchkeeper sounds fascinating as a remote embedded device. We'd usually do a show that was just an hour on how that problem was solved, because the technicalities of that sound really interesting, and all the models working remotely. But cool. And also, you didn't mention, is it actually possible to spot deep fakes? Because there's an app at the moment where you can take someone's head and then put a naked body on it and then distribute it to, which is, Facebook are getting hammered for this because all these pictures are appearing on Facebook and they're not spotting them. So if they could spot them automatically, that would be a huge advantage for them.
So the large media companies absolutely have the ability and probably the in-house capability to do the spotting. There's an issue of whether or not they're required by law in various jurisdictions to do that, and whether or not they want to put their resources into that problem. They're perfectly capable of automatically detecting them, but there will be some deep fakes, unfortunately, that go through the tools unless they're constantly updating their tools, and that requires investment from each individual company to keep pace with that problem. And it's part of why I characterize it as a wicked problem. It's not just as simple as run an automatic tool and detect it. They're very convincing. In fact, I just showed up in the Daily Mail today. I guess that's a badge of honor, being quoted for a Facebook scam where celebrities were deep faked and used to scam some individuals. So apparently, it's a very large scam happening right now that's been reported in the AI incident database. There is a database, by the way, of AI incidents that you can look at and report to if you do come across something like this.
All right, cool. Nick makes the point that standard length sentences are a giveaway of faking. And then asks, do you believe that AI speech recognition and production will reduce the use and need for visual interfaces or extend the use of AI to more hands-free situations? A very edge question.
That is a very edge question. It's a very good edge question. So I think it depends on whether they're good enough that people will actually uptake them. I recently used speech recognition in a situation where my hands were full and someone just put their phone in front of my mouth to write a message, and it didn't get much of the words, and so I was laughing at it. Which then it got the ha ha ha, and then me saying, "Oh my God, this is so." So the message ended up coming out really strange, with all my commentary inside the message I was trying to say. because it was just so ridiculous. But I think with some improvements, it could work. We have lots of open problems there, like accents, the diversity of languages, whether or not it will run properly on low power, and then the public perception of whether they feel like they're being surveilled.
Yeah, I remember being told 5 years ago that speech was the new UI, but it's taken a long time to get there. Like my quite modern car understands a few commands, but then it struggles with others.
Yeah,
the technology is not quite there yet. Yeah, I think that's all the questions we had, and all questions we've got time for. It's now 7 o'clock, perfect timing. Thank you very much for your talk. Thank you very much for the overview, the Edge AI Hub. That's appreciated. Nick says, thank you very much. Really interesting, wicked problems. I might call them ethical problems, but wicked's a good name too.
That's a technical term, by the way.
Is
a wicked problem it's a technical term.
Okay, right. Yeah. Thanks very much, and we'll see everyone after summer. Have a great break.